Okie dokie, we're gonna be getting started in just a second here. Let me make sure I can get my mouse out of the way, get my drawing tablet out of the drawer. Let's plug this in up top here. Come on. There we go. Got my drawing tablet plugged in, got the pen out of the drawer here. So today, we are going to start, first things first is going to be a little revenge on a friend of mine. So I'm gonna hope that Krita decides to actually show itself. If it doesn't, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, because it keeps on doing this, I don't know why. Let me just see if maybe scribbling a little bit will help. Let's save this as a Krita file so we can do... Oh, it did work. Okay. Well, the character we're going to be attacking is a friend of mine's original character here. This is in revenge for the silly little drawing of Callie that they did. So we're gonna be drawing this goober right here. And it's gonna be a simple drawing, not too complex. But I'm going to start with just the general, general circular head shape for the base. The character's features are rather obviously more angular, so we have to deal with that. But it shouldn't be too bad. So something a little bit like that maybe is pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty fitting for the general shape of the head there. Because it looks like he's got one big spike here. And then he's got two big ol' ears, it looks like. So this one's like this, going down like that. This one's like this, going down like that. Got a bunch of fluff on the side of the face there. A neck, obviously, goes down a little bit like that. And then the mouth is kind of a toothy kind of one, so it's going to be a little bit like... something like that is kind of good. And then the little horn thing on the nose. And then I think for the expression, I want to do something a little bit softer than what's on the reference. So something a little bit like that is kind of cute. And then he's got glasses over the top of all of that. So... something a little bit like that. Holy shit, 20 stream streak, dude, you are the GOAT. I don't know how you managed to show up, that often. But, like, that's pretty damn crazy. So, we are going to turn down the opacity here, and we're just gonna get started with our... probably gonna start on the snout here, just so it looks a little cleaner. So something a little bit like that's pretty good. And then... the snout actually shouldn't go too far back, because the big part of it is going to be That doesn't look quite right for the mouth. I think what I need to do is I need to make the face a little more angular. So I need to have there be one bit coming down like this, the other bit coming down like this. Those form into the top of the crest of the snout like that. This is where the actual snout itself is. Because the face is very angular. So something a little bit like that. Going out to the side here like this. And then repositioning everything. The big fangs should be right about here. And there. Something a little bit like that for the mouth could be cute. I think I might actually make it like go back a little further. So a little bit more like that's probably good. And then on top of the snout here is where the crystal-looking horn thing sits. So this is actually going to be sitting probably kind of like this, I would imagine, is the best way to draw it. Messed up that part a little bit, but it's going to be kind of like that. Something a little bit like that is good. And it does look like the pupils are sharper, so it's going to be something like that for the eye. Do I want to draw? I don't think I want to draw the other eye. So what I'm going to do here with this side of the head is I'm going to have the slope come in more. And that actually looks already quite a bit better. Because then I can take that nose spike and I can move that over here a little bit. And that looks a lot more fitting there. See, y'all, we're figuring it out. And then this is going to go here, and the other side of the nose is right there. And then I'm going to give, just for personality's sake, similar to that kobold we drew a few days ago, I'm going to give him some fun little eyebrows there. So, something like that's pretty good. Oh, I don't even have my Twitch dashboard open on my desktop. Hold on. I'm going to open that up. Creator dashboard. Stream manager. Alrighty, there we go. Now I've got it up. So, now that we've got that, we can give the big side things on the face here. I don't know if it's fluff or what, but something that goes a little bit like this. Something like that is good. Something like that is good. Something like that. That looks pretty good for the side of the face. And then these big ol' ears are going to come up like that and go down and back a little bit, just like this. Something like that's pretty good. And I think the inside of that ear is fluffy, but I can't quite tell. So I'm going to go up and around like this, down to here. Something a little bit like that's pretty good, I'd say. Because it does say on his bio on Artfight, that he is a mix of fluffy and spiky, so I think this is the best way to do it. Is to have it, you know, a mix, like I am doing it now. This ear can come out a little longer. Right out to about there is pretty good. And then that big spike there is going to be angled at the back. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of a curve here as it comes over the head. And then the back of it goes pretty much straight back down. So something a little bit like that. And then give this guy his other big-ass fucking ear. There we go. Oh, that's looking a lot better already. So what I'm gonna do to clean up these lines a bit is I'm gonna erase this one down further. Do something a little bit like that. Clean this up. Something a little bit like that to clean up all that. A little bit of this. Would you like some of this on your that? So let's do a little bit more of that. That's pretty good. Smooth out the outside of these lines here. That's good there. I think that actually looks pretty cute. So let's do something a little bit like that, just to add more of that ridge line. I think that looks pretty good for the base of the head. So the neck is going to come down like this. A little bit like that. That's pretty good. Thankfully his design's pretty simple, so I could do some fun stuff, like add that scarf there. So I'm gonna move the head up a little bit here. And just add the back of the scarf first. Because the scarf itself comes down a little bit like this. Something like that. And it does look like it's actually a little bit of an actual scarf from what I can see there. So I am going to first just make the section wrapped around the neck. So something a little bit like that, with a little bit more of this coming down on that side. Because he's facing that way, it's going to be a little bit like that. And then let's do a little bit of that. A little bit of that. Something kind of like that. Actually, not quite that sharp. There we go, that's a lot less sharp. I really like how this is looking, because he made me a very, the person that attacked me gave me a very simple, silly little drawing of Callie. I'll actually just pull it up real quick. Just because it's a very cute drawing. So let me go to my defenses here. I'll just show y'all the cute little drawing that they made of Callie. Look at this. This is adorable. Look at this doggy. This is the attack that I'm revenging for, and I think it's absolutely adorable. So that's what I'm doing the revenge for. And I'm gonna draw some, like, you know, little sparklies and stuff around his head when we get there. Since his glasses have color, I'm gonna draw those on a separate layer after we do the coloring for the base. And, of course, I think I forgot to change my fill mode. Yes, I did. What? What is happening? Is there an opening in the line somewhere? Oh, yep. That's what I was doing wrong. I was using the wrong mode. There we go. Get that filled in real nice. Fill that in. Fill in over here. The neck is a completely different... Nope, not that color. The neck is a completely different color. The scarf is a blue. Just like that. It is a blue with little stripes on it. So, judging by the fact that there's only a few of them, I'm going to say that probably something like that. That's pretty good for those, I would say. And then it does look like there's some more of them over here. So I'm gonna do the same thing towards the end. Just like that, I'd say that looks pretty good for that scarf there. Let's select all of the red that makes up his face, because we do have to add some smaller details here and there, besides the shading. Like these little kind of blush mark looking things here, so I'm gonna draw boom, 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 and boom. That looks pretty good, I'd say. Color in the eyes. That's very good. Color in the nose spike. And then I'm gonna actually make his little eyebrow that I made the same color as the other stuff that I was doing there. The inside of his ears. It is so hard to tell what the colors are here, but I'm going to assume the inside of the ears are... They start at this kind of greenish color. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna just kinda give it some fluffy texture to it, because it is the inside of an ear, so it's gonna look a little bit different. Something a bit like that. And then inside, whatever this color is, I'm going to assume it's probably something a little bit more like that. On the lighter side. Let's actually see. So this is a value of 54.51. This is a value of 35.29. But they're completely different colors. So, like, I'm gonna presume this is probably a little bit more towards the yellow. Probably it's a yellow. If I had to imagine, is it this color? No. So let's make this just a little brighter. Something like that probably is my best bet. For the actual inside of the ears here. Something like that, I think looks good. think that's pretty good for the base coloring. I might add just a few creative details of my own. Like, I'm gonna make the sides of the neck here be, slightly darker greens. So something a little bit like that. And then something a bit like that could be cute. Kind of an almost reptilian texture to it. I think that looks actually really cute. I will add a layer above for drawing the glasses in. They're just square frames that seem to be resting behind the spike on the nose there. So I'm going to... First things first, draw in the actual glasses. Get them in a realistic position here. Start going through and behind like this. And then probably do something similar on the other side here. I don't know if he wears actual glasses or not, but what I'm gonna do here is select my line layer. Thankfully, those glasses are the same exact blue as the nose spike, so I don't have to worry about that too much, but I do this, and it cuts it off there. Let's do a little bit more of this over to here. Let's go back into here again. Do a little something like that is cute, I would say. I'm actually going to extend it a little further, just so it's clear that his glasses are actually back there. And then I'm gonna add a little kinda clip things onto the snout here, just so it is indicated that something is holding on to his nose. I think I actually need to move this out further. Somewhere out to, like, right there, probably. And then I can do stuff like this. And a little bit of like that. Just like that, that's pretty good. I think just for the sake of detailing, I'm gonna give him some more things. Like, I think he would be very cute if he had, like, freckles kinda going on one side, even though he is on the scaly side of things. I do think giving him some freckles could be a cute bit of personality. So a little bit of that is very good. And then I'm actually going to give him some darker areas too, such as the inside of the ears here. That's going to go like that. This is gonna go a bit like this. Something like that is pretty darn good. I really like that. And then on top of all of that, I'm gonna go a little bit darker. And then on here, especially the center one, I'm gonna add some kind of lines to indicate a little bit of a rougher texture. that is looking really good. Besides the absence of some of this stuff on that side, I think that looks pretty darn good. So, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do the shading next. So I think the best way to do it is probably just the same way we've been doing it. We duplicate, we turn this layer into a gradient that is completely colored as 50% value. So 0, 0, 50. Just like that. Let's hide the glasses for now. Actually, no, we want to keep the glasses around because we want to do the shading. And then we put this, or not this, we put the base color as an overlay on there. And then down here is where we're going to do our actual shading. I discovered this trick a couple of weeks ago, I think now, and it has been very helpful. So I think we want to have the light coming from the top right. So the first things we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of this and this going. We're going to start shading on the sides first. So a little bit like that. A little bit like that. And a little further over here. That's pretty good. And then a little along the underneath of the snout here, just for the sake of depth. So something like this. But nothing really past that too much. Everything inside of here, inside the ears, is going to be pretty much shaded. Probably up to like right about there, I want to say, is where it's all going to be darker. Just because that's where the ear is kind of hiding from everything else a little bit. So something like that. The side of this thing is definitely going to be shaded. This is going to have a little bit of a crescent shaded out of it. So a little bit of that. That's quite cute. So let's leave that as it is. From here, we're going to go on to the neck, and this is going to be largely on this side. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that. That looks pretty good. There we go. The scarf is going to be pretty darn dark. The part I'm going to start with is the part I know for sure is going to be dark. That's the inside of the hood here. Or not a hood, but where the scarf is, obviously. Curved around on itself, kind of like that. That's going to be all dark. Over here, it's probably going to be even darker in a lot of other spots as well. Such as back here up to about there. Probably going to be dark. A little further along here. Get that like that a little bit. Do a little bit more of that. I think that looks pretty good for the depth of the scarf, because scarves are not very large things. So this is just going to go a little bit down like that. It's probably good for that shading. Do a little bit of this and that. Just as added little wrinkles in there. Something like that. Looks pretty good. Little bit of that down to like there, probably. Something like that. Let's trim that down a bit. Down to about, probably right there is good. Let's see here. I don't think the glasses really matter all too much for the shading. I'm not gonna bother with finding out where they cast their shadow. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and just try my best with it. Like, I'm gonna put the shadow for the glasses, like, right there. Right over here, probably. Probably a little bit further back, right there. And then up here it gets a lot closer. And then kind of just stops about there. This probably goes up like this. The rest is probably hidden behind the glasses until probably about right here. This is where I anticipate that's probably going to be. The snout spike here, this is going to be probably something a little bit along the corner. Something like that. Just like that's probably pretty good. I'll even add a little bit on the eyebrow to make it apparent that this eyebrow is kind of not really an eyebrow. So it's going to look a little bit like that and have a little bit of shading underneath it. The eye is also going to get some shading inside of it. A little bit like that, a little bit like this. That's pretty good. And then turning that layer back on. Oh, that looks lovely. That looks downright adorable, if I say so myself. Then we're going to duplicate the glasses. We are going to set their color to the same exact thing here, where it's going to be all at 50%. This one's going to be at 50%. This is going to be below it. This is going to be overlay. And then we'll just do a little bit of shading on the glasses. It does not have to be much, but it does have to be enough to indicate that they're actually 3D. Like, there isn't going to be a whole lot of shading on these things because of the direction they're facing. So something like that. A little bit of this. A little bit on the inside of the rim over here. A little bit of this. A little bit of that. That's pretty good. And then we're actually going to erase right there on both these layers. And then I think that's pretty darn good for that. So the rest of it's just going to go probably like right there, a little bit there. Something like that probably looks pretty good for the glasses shading. Let's hide the background for now. And then let's go down onto this layer and start doing a little bit of blurring. So because his skin is probably, like I said, somewhere between scaly and fluffy, I'm gonna go with this blending tool, actually. That's not a blending tool, I lied. Let's go with this blending tool. Just because the texture is kind of mixed, so it's gonna be a little bit weird in some of these spots here. Actually, I'll wait to do the eye until I have a much smoother one equipped. But this is gonna give us some good rough blurring for the parts that are on the rougher skin, such as over here. Just like that. And then we get some right about there. Get some more right up here. This is going to be rougher because it's on the actual scaly part. This is going to be a little bit on the softer side. The nose spike is going to be a little bit like this. Down here, it's going to be a bit like this on the rougher side. Just like that. Since we've got that, then we can swap tools over to this much smoother one and start doing the smoother parts, rather obviously. Such as the eyes, the eyebrow, the scarf over here. So just like that. That looks pretty good for that. Let's smooth out the stuff on the horn even more. And then is when we start drawing our highlights. And our highlights are going to be right on places like this. I'm actually going to use probably the airbrush is the best option here. Just because the highlights need to be softer. Such as right along here. They're going to be nice and soft. And then a little bit of highlight on the eyes themselves. Not that it's going to be very visible, but it adds a little bit of flavor to it. I think that about does it for that. So we're going to shade the glasses next. We've already got the actual shading on there done, but we just need to smooth it out. So I'm going to go in with a very precise brush here. Select and invert, just so we can get this blurred. So I think what we're actually going to do here for this layer is I think what we're going to do is Control-C, Control-V. We're going to Gaussian blur this. We are going to go back down onto this layer, and then we're going to remove all the stuff that's spilled out of the outside. merge this back down. And then that looks pretty good for our glasses. So I think that literally just about does it. The background, I'll just make a simple, kind of middling gray. Not that gray. Oh wait, this actually helps us here, because this does mean we get to see where there's parts spilling out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into here, select all of the color outside of there, remove that shading from there. Let's give that another try. I said let's give that another try. There we go. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any spots of background. Because I would hate for there to be spots where there is a dead pixel. But it looks like I got it all. Besides right here, I don't know what's going on right here. Is that on our shading layer? That is on our shading layer. What's going on over here? Not with that brush. We want to go in with the airbrush and just fix up whatever the heck happened here. I suspect what happened was it probably was spillover from the part that's transparent. So it's going to be like that. This is going to be gray again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to this layer here, select, invert selection, and then I'm going to just make a new layer under the shading layer, where we've got that 50%. And then I'm just going to just fucking do all this, just so it fills in any of the dead spots. And then on the background, I'm going to do a bunch of cutesy little stuff. So I think I'm gonna just do some, like, you know, little sparklies and stuff like that. Like a little bit of a sparkly. Just like that. Because I like adding a little bit of pizzazz to my art when it's a simpler background. So it's going to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. A little bit of those sparklies here and there. And then up here is where we're going to do, as per usual, our signature. Well, not signature, watermark. Calero, star 9, June 2026. Set that to 1% opacity. Save that. Let's export it as the signed version. And then turn that layer off. Export it again, this time as the no signature version. So, let's see, how long have I been going? I've been going for 45 minutes, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to... Run a second, y'all. Alright, I am going to go into my Artfight here. I am going to attack this person's character. Going to attack. So this is a clean sketch, clean color. I'm gonna say minimal, I'm gonna say fully shaded, simple background. It is a head/bust shot because it is just shoulders up. Get that revenging the thing that they made for me. And then I'm gonna go streaming and art, signature.png. This attack does not need a content filter. Looks good. Confirm attack details. Fully shaded. All of that. An error occurred. Yay! Oh, it was the thumbnail of it, that's why. Let's try that again. Get that all set up and good to go. Confirm attack details. Now let's try. There we go. Alright, I submitted that attack. That was worth 28 points. So I'm going to, real quick, y'all. Alrighty, now that I've got that all submitted, I am going to exit out of that specific file. And what I am going to do now is I'm going to do a little bit of browsing around on Artfight here real quick. So I'm going to, while I'm looking for a few candidates, I'm going to go on the Be Right Back screen. I will do that hydration check real quick while I'm looking around. And then when I am back, I will have a few candidates lined up for you guys, whoever's watching. I think there's only like 2 people watching. You guys can vote on who I draw. Let's see here, doing a little looking around, trying to find something. So many human characters is the issue, and I am not good at— Ooh, here's a banger. Okay, here's one character that I'm going to put up. So in Krita, I'm basically just going to make a big ol' thing that's like, do you guys like this character? Do you guys like this character? Or this one? Or this one? So I'm going to start assembling that. I think I want to get a total of 4 that I want you guys to vote on. Here's one. I know you guys cannot see my screen. That is intentional. I'm currently just trying to find a few good, cute characters, ones with interesting designs for me to draw. I want to find furry characters primarily. I'm sure there's a lot of them around, but I just have to keep looking, so it'll be just a second while I do so. Ooh, I like this creature. That's a very cute creature. 2 more characters, and then I will hold a vote in chat of who I draw. Let's see here. Ooh. Ooh. I like this creature. I'm finding some good creatures here today. There's my 3rd creature. And now we just have to look for a 4th. I stumble across some insane character profiles on here sometimes. Oh, I love this little guy. That's cute. Okay. So let's do that as number 4. So I'm going to have this... Actually, I have to resize one of these so it's a little more visible. Okay, let's change this back to my streaming. And let's see, does this show up on Krita? Krita, please, are you working? Yes, you are! Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go into my Twitch dashboard here. I'm going to start a poll of which of these do I draw? 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I'm going to set the duration for 2 minutes here. So that poll should pop up there at the top. Just give it a vote. Click on whichever one of those that you want me to draw. 1, 2, 3, or 4. If I end up not getting any votes, or if I get just 1, then I'm going to choose myself. But if there is more than 1 person in chat that's paying attention, then you can vote on one of these. If there's 2 of you guys, then hopefully you agree on them, because, Okay, looks like we got 1 vote for 2. If the poll ends up just having, like, two or less people voting on it, I'm probably just going to choose for myself, because it does look like I have, I think, 3 or 4 viewers right now. So, this is... Wake the fuck up! If you're watching me right now, wake the fuck up and vote! This is your chance! So if you do, want to see a specific one of these goobers drawn, now's your chance, because otherwise I'm just going to choose for myself, because a 1-person poll isn't even a poll. But I do like all of these characters' designs a lot, so... Full disclosure, the one I'm going to draw if nobody votes, like, if we only have 2 or less people voting, is I'm probably going to draw Cygnus, because I really like that design. So let's back up. And it looks like, we only had 1 or 2, I can't tell if it's 1 or 2 votes, but, number 2 was the winning option. However, because of how few people voted, I am just going to draw what I would like to draw instead. Because I like all the designs, but I think Cygnus's design really sticks out to me. But I really think that... what was I gonna say? I think that it would have been a lot better if more people voted on that poll. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to draw Cygnus here. So I'm going to close out of that document, copy Cygnus's reference picture into here, and then with that, I am going to take a look at the notes here of the design. So it looks like she is... Her anatomy is still cat-like, but she walks on her hind legs, so she's not specifically... She's not specifically an anthropomorphic character. So don't draw her on all fours, don't draw her anthropomorphically, but think like Puss in Boots or something like that. So I'm probably going to do just probably a headshot, just because that's what I'm feeling like. So I'm going to go 800 by 800 for the canvas here. Because I do my drawings kind of on the smaller end. So I'm going to just kind of start by sketching out the general shape of her head. Circular, same as every other character I draw, that's just how my style is. And I'm actually going to rearrange these real quick. Her ears are big as fuck, so I'm going to just kind of, you know, vaguely mark out where the ears are going to be. Not there, specifically, because I think I want... She does have a shorter snout, so it's probably going to be, like, right about... down, probably right about here is where her snout's going to be. So her ears are going to be, like... you know, here and probably right about there. And I'm going to probably just give her a rather annoyed expression, probably. Like, obviously, very rough sketch, but like... fluffy side of the head. And then her outfit is pretty regal, so I'm going to go for... The neck is going to cut right about there, and then there's going to be a bit more of it that has some cool stuff on. So something a little bit like that. And then I'm going to save this as Artfight attack underscore Cygnus. So, because of how her face is shaped, and because she's not anthropomorphic and just pretty much just cat-like, I'm going to start out by doing a little bit of this, something like that. Let's see here. Something like that. Let's see. I'm definitely gonna have to readjust the face size, obviously, because I'm working off of this kind of nose and face shape. I think making the nose a little bit more triangular like that's probably good. And I'm gonna actually get to do eyes more like my usual style. And then her ears are going to be rather large, so like, you know, big-ass fucking things. Wow, I actually did that shape really well, like, the first exact time. That's fucking insane. Since this is, like, the second rough draft of the lines, I'm actually just gonna use that for now. And then she's got a little... She looks bald as hell, so her head just goes like that. I am so bad at drawing the other side of faces. Especially with, like, feline anatomy, because it just looks so different. Because cats have their nose lower down on their snouts. So if I do it a little bit more like there... something like that, that actually looks a little bit better. And then I'm gonna make her look a little bit more bored. Because her whole facial expression is basically just bored as shit. Because she's meant to be kind of cold-hearted according to her profile page. So something a little bit like that. And then, you know, side fluff on the side of the face. I still made the snout way too big, is probably the biggest issue. So let's take that and just shrink that down up. That looks a lot more reasonable. Because then that forms straight into, basically, her chin. Again, I'm not really that good at drawing, like, feline anatomy, especially because she's not anthropomorphic, so her face is shorter and stuff like that. So a little bit like that is about the best I can get. I think that's pretty good for the eyes, at least, and stuff. Looks like this person is on Team Tragedy, so I'm gonna get less points because they're on the same team as me, but I don't really care. I'm not in it for the points, I'm in it to give people cool art of their characters. So that's the general head shape, which means that the neck is going to be also a little bit shorter. So probably something a little bit more like that. And then right up to about there, that's probably a lot better. I'm gonna crop it down a little bit more here. Alrighty. That's a pretty good second rough draft. Actually, her eyebrows are longer, so I'm going to... something like that definitely makes her look a lot more cruel. And let me just layer, transform, mirror horizontally. That actually still looks good, so I'm going to leave it as it is. So, I am actually going to just have to trace over a few details here. for the better layer. Such as making the snout a bit softer, so it can transition into that chin easier. Gonna bring this down a little bit. Like that, that's pretty good. The eyes I'm going to keep pretty much the exact same, because I don't really care too much about how perfect I get those. But the other side of the face, I don't have to worry as much about. I can just kind of have that line taper off a bit, because there's a lot of fur behind it. So, as long as I get the general head shape still going good... it'll just taper off like that, because she does have that kind of... actually, the top of her head does seem to be a little bit flatter. So I'm going to do that. I guess that's just the way cats are built. Now, with the ears. The ears are tall and triangular. So something like up to there, actually probably even taller than that. Probably something a bit more like that is pretty accurate. And then the tips of her ears are very fluffy. So a bit like this. A little bit further down like that. Down like that's pretty good. That is one ear. And then I'm gonna cap it off right about there. And then this side of the face is going to be a big fluffy mess. So it's going to be starting up in the ears. So something a little bit like that. Bit like that. Let's see, it goes a little bit out like that. And then when that happens, goes a little bit further in. I think I got the face shape looking decent. I don't know, I just hope I'm not making the snout too wide, because I suck at drawing feline faces. But I'm actually just gonna draw real quick over this eye, just to get it a better shape. Then do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. A little bit of that, looks pretty good. Now it matches the other eye better, so I'm gonna keep it like that. The other eye, all I'm gonna do is add a little bit of a little bit more of that kind of side eyelash, I guess you could call it. So let's go and select all of this. Put that up here. No, merge that down. Awesome. That looks pretty good there. Oh yeah, that's looking good. And then her other ear is just as triangular. So I've got to go, like, up to here. Down to there. And then just because of the direction she's facing here, this is going to be the inside of the ear. And it is going to be a similar fluffiness pattern on this side, where it's like, boom. And then the same kind of boom here. A little bit of that. And then this fluff is going to come out in front of the ear here. And I'm trying my best to show that on both sides it is the same pattern of fluffiness, but with some differences, because you can't get your hair the exact same on both sides, obviously. So I think what I'm gonna do here, because this side looks a bit too fluffy, so I'm going to select this. I'm gonna select all this. And select all that. I am just going to crunch it a little bit like that. That looks a lot better. Oh yeah, that looks a lot more proportionate. The only thing I think I gotta fix is I gotta bring this further down, the ear fluff. So bringing that down to, like, there makes it a lot more proportionally accurate. And then I gotta make the opening of the ear wider. Let's fix this transition right here. There we go. And then her neck and below is gonna be pretty simple. It's gonna look just a bit like this. And then it's gonna curve down like that and come back up. I think it is safe to say I can delete that layer. Who is trying to talk to me? I have no idea. 1 second. Okay, there we go. So, let's see. I think the best thing I can do here, probably to add some more character to her, is make her eyes look a little bit more scrunched. Like a little bit like that, so the kind of annoyance on her face is a little more apparent. And then I'm gonna do the same thing I do with all my characters that look constantly annoyed, is give them that little thing right there on the side of their mouth. Just makes them look all the more annoyed than they already do. And then on her neck here, I'm just going to go slightly above on a separate layer. This is gonna go all the way across. And then it's gonna be erased all like that. Just to show that she has a unique piece of clothing on there. And then this is actually, I think, I will probably draw the, fucking, hold on, merge that below. I will draw the actual circular buckle of her hood, which is part of her cloak. So I'm gonna go, like... Because you can see she's got this cloak on here. And then part of that is this clasped buckle right here. So I'm going to make that buckle. It looks like it is roughly circular, so I'm going to just go in a little further here. That looks about right. And then let's go... something a little bit like that for that side. And a little bit like this for this side. I think that looks pretty good for the perspective we have. And then let's just trim this line down a bit, because it looks really thick. So something a bit more like that, that's good. And then on this side, we erase a little bit of the actual neckline here, just so we can get a bit of that cloak line going through like this. Same thing on this side, it's going to be a smoother thing like that. Let's do a little bit of this, like that. I'm gonna elevate the back a little more. I really do like drawing characters that have, like, hoods or scarves. I don't know why, but it just keeps happening. What the fuck button did I just press? I don't know. There we go. And with that, we can go extend that line a little further, extend that one a little further, and you've got yourself space for the actual back of the hood. Let me see if there's some way I can make her look a little bit less bald, but I don't think there really is. Because she is kind of just a cat, so she's gonna look a little bald. Let's start with the basic coloring. And it does look like I've got a few spots here that I'm gonna need to fill in. So, places like there. There we go. And then her neck is also going to be this color. And this color is also part of the rest of her face. So, let's just make sure we get all the hair filled in first. So anywhere there's little bits like that, little bits like that, something like, oh, not there, but right over there, yes. And it does look like this color of fur is actually the different color of fur, so I'm gonna go do that. Because that's the color of the inside of the ear right over there. So that's a completely different part. The ears as a whole, the outside is that color, so that's what I'm gonna do for that. I think the little fluffs at the end are the same color too, so they get to stay. And then this right here gets to be that color as well. Just like that. That looks pretty good. The inside of her ears are this color. So that's what I'm gonna fill it with. And then her eyebrows don't really have a color, but I'm gonna call that the darker fur color, probably. So something like that. Her eyes are blue, it looks like, so I'm gonna set that as the color there. Let's grab this as the color of her eyes. Not quite white, but close. Being colorblind makes it so hard to distinguish from the rest of her fur. But that's probably as good as I'm gonna get her eyes looking. I think. I don't know, I did my best. So if they get mad over my art, I have the pretty damn good excuse of being colorblind. Actually, what am I doing? This is the wrong way around. This is gonna go like this, round the outside. And then the black of the inside is going to be... well, black. What else would it be? I think it's probably going to be on the smaller side, something like that. It's probably about the best I'm gonna get that other eye even looking, because it's really hard. So something like that. Her nose is that color. I don't know what color the inside of her mouth is, but I'm gonna go with just like, you know, a darker kind of that color, because I think cat lips are usually kind of a darker brown, black-ish color. Or maybe I could have the teeth showing through there. Yeah, that looks better. Having the teeth show makes it look a lot better. And then next is the patterns on her face. The patterns are going to be pretty much a triangle from about the center of her forehead, about here, I'm gonna say, down to the sides. Even the sides of some of the fluff is pretty wide. So something a bit like this. And then down to the other side as well. And then I'm gonna start making it look actually natural. Have you tried colored line art before? I have. I just didn't think it suited my style very well, so I ended up kind of just dropping it. I think it's a really cool process, it's just not the kind of thing that suits the way I draw. Because line art is not very important to my art. I like to do... The important parts for me are usually the coloring and the shading. Okay, so I misinterpreted the pattern a bit here. The pattern actually has some lighter spots underneath the eyes, like right about there. And then it goes down. So it's gonna be actually a little bit more like this. Because it comes down to roughly about here. Yeah, that is a lot more accurate for the pattern. I thought something looked off. So this is gonna come down just like this. And it's still gonna end in a similar spot. I just have to, you know... a little bit like that. That actually looks pretty damn good. Because that's the way I draw fluffy stuff, is it starts looking like this, and I think it fits really well. There is a little bit of the darker color, which is back here behind all of this stuff, so I'm gonna do a little bit of that. I'm gonna go a little bit like that as well, just to indicate where it is. I think that looks pretty good for the base of that coloring. The stuff further down, such as this, is just going to be that color. The little gem thing is going to be about... That's probably the good base color for it. And then her cloak is colored like this. Let me just make sure I fill in that little spot there. And then the cloak has little stars on it, and those stars are about this color. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna kind of just speckle a few here and there. Put a few dots around of all the stars on a cloak. So something a little bit like that is pretty good. I think for the base color, that looks pretty damn good. So let me just make sure I'm not missing any details, because I'm just doing this part of her. I don't think I am missing anything big. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to do the shading. And the shading is going to be another, once again, duplicate, not round corners, no, wrong button. Duplicate, map, gradient map. Choose gradient preset. It is going to be 0, 0, 50. And then, once again, 0, 0, and 50. Just like that is going to be the gradient map. This is going to go over the top and be overlaid on it. And then inside of the gradient map is where we're going to start coloring with our value 30. So, why is it selecting the wrong thing? Select, invert selection. Okay, now it's got the right thing. Okay, so, similar light source, I think probably to the base drawing is what we want to do. So let's start by doing it a little bit like this. And it kind of just comes down a little bit like that. And because she's facing a different direction than in the reference art, it's going to look a little different, and that's okay. And then a little bit of the underside of the face here is going to have some shading on it. Nothing too crazy. And then a little bit of this, just to indicate that there's some fluff there, obviously. Same thing is going to happen over here. Nothing too crazy with the shading. Just a little bit of here and there shadowing to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. Nothing too standout-ish, or whatever you want to call it. But over here, it's going to be this little dark pocket caused by the ear. And then inside of the ear itself, there's going to be large swaths of darkness formed by the inside of the ear. This is going to be a little bit like that too. I'm going to color the space between like that and like that. That looks pretty good for that. The ear shading is going to come around a little further, just like that. This ear is pretty much entirely in the light, but once again on this side, I'm going to have a little bit of that shadow. Same thing with the actual outline of the ear. So it's going to look a bit like that. Very edges of this are going to be a little bit shadowed. Overall, there isn't going to be a whole lot of shadow on this because a lot of her face is facing straight towards the light. So I will have to do some highlighting to give it some more depth. But on her hood here is where we can do some more. So it's going to look like that. And then like that. Nope, not quite like that. So something a little bit like this is better. And then a little bit of this here and there. A little bit more, just like that. And then we're gonna do some of that on the gem. It's gonna look a little bit like wrapped around, kinda. So that's just how the shading is on something smooth like a gem. So since we've got the shading pretty much done, because most of her is facing towards the light, what we're going to do now is we're going to go up our value to 65%, So we can start drawing some highlighted areas, such as right over here, right over here, right all along here. Most of that part of the gem. So it's going to look kind of like that. A bit like that is good. I'll put some highlights in her eyes here. Just like that. I can put a little bit of a highlight, a very loose one, inside of her ears here because, you know, they're kind of see-through in some parts. Because the ears of most animals let light through somewhat easily. So if I do this, it'll be pretty good. And there's not really any other reflective surfaces, so what I'm going to do is just up this to 75%, and then right down here on the gem is where I'm going to do the last little bits of highlighting. Just make it a little irregular. And then from here is when we can start doing our usual blending processes. So if we do a little bit of this and this, and it's actually good to let that light bleed in a little bit from the edge there. It gives it a little bit more depth. But I do want to undo some of that. So the biggest thing that I want to have blurred is the darkness, which can basically just get blurred right up to the edge here. I'm actually going to do that same thing again that I usually do, where I go into here and I fill it with 50% underneath everything, just so there's a good underlayer. So in case I do blend into the white, it just shows up just fine. This right here is going to be very smooth shading because this looks like satin or something, so it's probably just going to shade real smoothly. Same thing with this smooth right here, or this light right here is going to need to be majorly smoothed out. So something a lot more like that is what we want to go for. And then on the fur itself, we're actually going to wait for the fur, because that's going to probably use a different brush. But on the highlights here, we can just do a little bit of here and there. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then the hood can have the same thing happen to a lesser extent. But underneath there, I do need to redraw a bit of that 75 or 30% value. So right about there. Do a little bit of that. Then go back down to the blurring. There we go. And just like that, the hood is pretty much done. It is time for the inside of the ears. A little bit of this and that. That looks pretty good for the inside of the ears. A little bit more of this and that. And then a little bit of blurring on the edges. Same thing up here on the fur there. That can all be blurred. Same thing on the outside there, because that fur is smoother. So a little bit of this and that here and there. And then on the actual parts that need to be blurred, what happened there? I don't know what happened there. So let's go down there again with our airbrush. Oh, wrong file. And then we're gonna just kind of brush in. What is happening? I don't know why this all happened here, but let's fix that up real quick. There we go. And then this is all going to be blended with our rake tool here. This is all, I found this one's really good for fur. Especially at larger brush sizes, because it leaves distinct lines when you blend. So it's going to look like fur. So when I do this, it looks a lot better. Let's turn that brush size up a little bit. A little bit of this and that, once again. I'm really good at shading a little bit of this and a little bit of that all over the place. Let's do some of that. That looks pretty good. I'm actually going to go through, I'm going to use the rake tool on some of the coloring here, just to get more of a fluffy texture going, because I don't like how rigid the lines are. So it's going to go just like that. Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that. That's wonderful. Same thing right down here. And same thing right up here on the ears. We're gonna have the lighter tufts sticking up into the darker areas. And I forgot to shade, or not shade, I forgot to finish up this side. So a little bit of this and that, here and there. That looks pretty damn good, so let's crop that down to a more reasonable aspect ratio there. The background here is we're going to fill it all in, probably a dark blue-gray, kinda. That looks good. I like that. And then we are going to actually play with the opacity of that layer. That looks good for the very subtle shading. Just like that. And then it's got kind of the weird texture on the inside of the ears, which is what I wanted. And then the background here, same thing as I usually do. I'm just going to draw a few random little things on there. Like, I think I'll draw some stars around because her name is Cygnus, which is a constellation. So I'm just gonna, like, you know, do a little sparkly here. I'm gonna draw another little sparkly down here. I'm gonna get another little sparkly right here. Pink, pink. this and a little bit of that. That looks pretty damn good. And then... Calero Star. 9 July 2026. Set that to 1% opacity. Save this. And we have been going for an hour and 48 minutes. So I am going to end off stream right where we are right now. Let's see if maybe if someone else is live doing Artfight stuff. That might be fun. Let's see here. Not anybody I recognize, so we're actually just going to end off stream right where we are right now. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. It'll probably be about 2 days before I stream again, provided that my room isn't like 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So, we'll see how that goes, but I'll see you guys around, and thank you for stopping in. Bye-bye.